Hello and welcome to the Strong Friend podcast with Jack and Lewis. Now I've got a really, really good one for you today. We talk about the topic that no one wants to talk about, and that's mental health. So we've got some really funny stories for you, and also some really strong stories. Some stories that will make you think. So before you go, please like and subscribe and share this one with someone who you think could really use it. Now let's get into the podcast. So Lou, how's your week been, man?
It's been stressful, mate, because we've been trying to do this for about 20 times now.
It's funny because every time you practice, because there's no pressure on you, you just forget that anything exists and everything just runs super smooth. But we've done about 4 practices now, just to get to grips with the equipment, just to get to grips with the way that everything works. And everything went super smooth. We sent it out to people, got some feedback, and we've worked on those things. But ever since we know in the back of our heads that this one's real, all of a sudden we start to just mess up words. We just mess up our everything. So this is about the 40th time that we've done this intro. So hopefully this is the final time and this actually makes the final cut.
I hope so. But it also goes into this week's topic, doesn't it? So
yeah, because this week's topic will probably be a theme across every topic, to be honest. And it's mental health. And mental health and our experience with mental health. Because we're not professionals by any stretch of the imagination. We're just people who have been through tough times and want to talk about it. And we've been talking about it with each other for years now, ever since we both learned that we've been through it. And it's something that I'd like to share and extend out so that the conversations that we have, and we're lucky enough to have with each other, that platform's open to everyone then. Because for me, that's what's missing right now. There's no how-to manual when it comes to mental health and how to talk about it.
And I think that's important as well, Jack, because people don't know how to talk about mental health. And I'll use you as an example. You told me years ago that you were suffering with depression, didn't you? And I knew I was suffering. And when you told me that, I didn't know what to say. But in my mind, in my head, I really wanted to just pull you to one side and just be like, right, okay, Jack, this is what's going on in my life as well. I really relate to what you're saying. But I didn't, and I regretted it. I remember the day.
Well, what was the first time that you ever experienced mental health issues, do you think?
I've been anxious all my life, but the first time that it got uncontrollable was when I was living at the uni flats. And I had a panic attack whilst I was working in customer service. And I actually, when I had the panic attack, I ran out of the office. It was horrible. Yeah, it sounds quite funny, isn't it? It is quite funny when you look back on it, but at the time I didn't really know what it actually was. I just, your brain tells you that you're dying, so I thought that I was dying. So I jumped up out of my chair. Bear in mind, in this office there's probably over 200 people, and I sprint for the bathroom door. And so I got through the bathroom door, went in the bathroom, pretty much almost fainted. I didn't, and then after I was just shaking. I ended up going home. I actually rang my mum, and I says,
"Oh wow,
yeah." I said, because I was supposed to be staying at the uni flats, but I said, can you come pick me up and take me home? And I stayed with mum's that night. And
did you drive to work?
Yeah, I had to leave my car there. That's how bad this panic attack was. I never experienced anything like it before.
So talk me through when you were in the bathroom.
Yeah.
When you'd run to the bathroom, what were you thinking at that time? Like, what was going through your head?
I just felt like I was going to die. So it was hard to process any proper thoughts. I was just going through. I was sort of like looking in the mirror, putting cold water on my face, trying to relax, but nothing that I seemed to do worked. But eventually, as with panic, you always come down. I came down after about 10 minutes. And then, like I say, I was very shaken up after. Ended up staying at my mum's house in my old bedroom anyway.
Yeah.
And the day after, I could just tell that my nervous system was fucked, basically. I spoke to her and my reality had just changed forever. I ended up entering into deep depersonalization, so my body didn't feel like mine. I felt scared to leave the house. When I did go back to work, I think I only had like 2 days off after that, and I went straight back in. As soon as I got back there, I was worrying again, and it was uncontrollable, mate. It really was. So, one last thing on that. The reason that I knew it got out of control is because when we went to the uni flats, I think it was only a couple of weekends after, we all had a pre-drink. And this feeling that I'd been feeling for the past 2 weeks or so, it went away after we've had a drink. And at that second, I thought, there's an issue here. If it's going away whilst I've had a drink, something's definitely not right. And the next day was when I decided to sort of take matters into my own hands and find out what was going on. And that's when I discovered that it was anxiety and trauma that I'd been through in the past, which we'll speak about. But yeah, man, that's pretty much it. So what was your first experience where you felt it was overwhelming?
So for me, I think the first experience where I knew that there was something that was different, I won't say wrong, I'll say that's different, was when I felt like I didn't want to go to school, and I also didn't want to go home. And I just didn't want to be anywhere. Yeah. And that was probably at about the age of, I don't know, 15 years old, 14, 15.
Yeah, that's so young.
And I remember just feeling like I was anxious to go into school. There was the feelings of anxiety, of not wanting to see people, of certain people who I was afraid of certain things being said that I was afraid of. And there was the fear of going home, where I had a very similar thing, where I didn't want to go home because at the time, the household was a very tense atmosphere. So when you're going into school and you're on edge, you're nervous, you're anxious, and then coming home to that same environment, there's no escape. And that was the first time where I think I felt I just want this to be over. I just want to be... It wasn't that it's not that school was overwhelming. It's not that home was overwhelming. I just didn't want to be anywhere. There was just a blackness, just a bleakness to life where I was just like, I just don't want this anymore. I just don't want to have this anymore. I just want it to end. Like, I don't like these feelings. Yeah. And I think that's at the moment where I wish someone would have asked me at that moment, just asked me, is everything okay? And actually spoken to me about it. Because when you're so young, you don't know what them feelings are. And it's not even an age thing, really, because there's people in their 30s who go through this and they don't know what these feelings are.
100%.
And unfortunately, I don't care how many degrees you have, no one knows what is going through your head besides you. Yeah. And that's one of the key things that I wish I was told. Because it's one thing to recognize the symptoms, the signs. It's another thing to accept it. Because I understood that the way I was feeling was different to how others were at school or how others portrayed themselves. And I was worried about that, and I panicked about that, and I thought, well, this isn't right. Yeah. And because that I thought, oh, well, this isn't right. And you said it yourself when you were telling your story. You were saying that in a negative way. Because you think that those feelings aren't right, you turn them into a negative thought, and you think that you shouldn't be feeling them.
Well, I think,
and you think that it's unnatural.
Well, like you've just said, I think when you do lose that sense of self-identity, your reality just crumbles.
It does, mate.
That's basically what you've just described there as well. But you had it from a much younger age, which is horrendous. But you also said that it doesn't matter what age you are, when you experience it, you don't know what these feelings are. And it takes a while of adjustment to actually get your head around what's going on, how are you feeling. And like you said, acceptance can take years. Some people never accept it. I believe that we've accepted it.
Yeah.
And with acceptance comes peace, for sure.
Yeah, well, to a degree. I think to a degree.
Yeah.
Because, so, when you accept, the acceptance is, as you say, Lou, it's a process. It's not something that happens overnight. You're not going to listen to this podcast and then just because I say it's okay to feel the way you are feeling, it's not going to flick a switch. It's not going to turn a button and say, oh, brilliant, I accept that I'm struggling now.
Yeah.
What, if you've ever been through mental health abnormal, things that are abnormal to you,
yeah.
If you've ever experienced that, then you know what acceptance takes, because you'll look in the mirror and you'll say, I'm feeling this way and I don't understand why.
Yeah.
When you don't understand why, you can get very panicked. You can start thinking, oh, is this right? Is this natural? What am I doing? And you start Googling, oh, what is depression? What is anxiety? Because going back to my story.
Yeah.
When I was, and this follows on from acceptance, when I was about 15 to 16, that kind of age.
Yeah.
This was at the time where, can you remember them videos that people were doing where they were, instead of speaking on camera, they were holding up signs and then hold up a sign, they'd drop it, and then they'd have the next one, a load of paper in the hand.
Yeah,
and drop it, and they'd have the next one. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So I made one of them.
Did you make one?
But I made one about how I was feeling in terms of my mental health. So because I was confused. I was confused as to what these feelings were, why I didn't want to go to school, why I didn't want to go home, why I just wanted to not exist.
Yeah.
And I hated it. I hated it. I hated that it's like a pressure. It's like walking outside and gravity is just twice as much today.
Yeah. That's very well put, yeah.
Not only is gravity twice as much, it's cloudy.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is it cloudy, there's a storm on the horizon. So that's how it felt to me. It felt like there was just this immense pressure. And the only way that I could get it out was to make one of these stupid videos where you hold up words and you just drop it and you drop it and you drop it.
Yeah.
So I cannot remember. I'd love to watch that video back now, but I cannot remember what it said. After that video, I don't know how. I really don't know how, but my mum found the video.
Yeah.
And she, without speaking to me about what the video was about, she referred me to a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember being in the car and she said, I've made an appointment with the doctor to talk about that video. Yeah. And I got very defensive at first because I was a bit like, well, how have you found this video? What have you, because I don't think I ever had the intention to share it. I just had the intention to make it.
Yeah, to express your emotions and stuff.
Exactly. And having that, I was automatically like that on guard. I put my guard up straight away and said, I just made the video. And it was nothing. It was nothing. I was just making the video.
Yeah.
And my mum obviously wouldn't accept that answer, and we went to the doctors. And so I was speaking to the doctor about what I was feeling. And the doctor said to me, well, from my perspective, and this was a GP, from my perspective, you're displaying signs of depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
But a GP isn't qualified to give you that diagnosis. So what they do is they refer you to a psychologist.
Yeah.
And for me, that was through Mind. And I had a psychologist diagnose me as depressed and anxious.
Yeah.
Now, during that stage, I wish that instead of someone saying you are depressed and you are anxious, I wish the narrative would have been different. Because it's a lot harder to accept that you are depressed and that you are anxious and that you have this label that you are something. It's a lot harder to accept that than for someone to say, I've had them thoughts too.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? Because if someone said to me, oh, I was bullied at school, I had them exact same thoughts. I had these thoughts of not wanting to go in. I had these thoughts of not wanting to be alive anymore. I've had these thoughts about wanting to kill yourself.
Yeah.
And it's normal. I wish they would have said that rather than putting a label on it, because it makes it 10 times harder to try and accept.
100%, mate. Yeah, it just isolates you even more, doesn't it? Really?
Well, you start Googling depression, because I grew up in that era, as you did, Lou, where if you want to learn about something, you go to Google.
Yeah.
So immediately after I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, I Google what it is and how it affects you.
Dr. Google, with all the opinions and different
Exactly.
ways of treatments.
Exactly. And I should have been asking people. I'd much rather have asked people who've struggled with their mental health. So how have you felt? How have you dealt with these things?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
definitely.
instead of giving me this label and saying, oh no, you are this, I'm not anything. I really am not. I'm normal, just as everyone else is normal. Everyone is. There's no person on this earth who isn't. Everyone's their own normal to themselves.
Everyone's prone to those emotions as well, aren't they? It's not.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're feeling those emotions and then a psychologist just says, well, you're depressed, all it leads to is just feeling more isolated.
Yeah.
So,
you think that they're negative.
Yeah,
you think that they're negative. You look at, no one's ever thought, oh, I've been diagnosed with depression. That's brilliant. Brilliant news.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Such good news to hear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't have bridal showers for having depression. You don't have, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a good thing to be. It's not a good feeling when you're diagnosed with it. It's a very sober, or I found that it was a very sobering moment. And you get put into this box where you think that the thoughts that you are having are bad.
Yeah.
And that is why you have this label. So it's the same as you think that the thoughts were bad and that's why you panicked.
Yeah.
They're just thoughts. They really are. They are just thoughts. And no one on this planet will make you act on those thoughts. They're just part of your reality at that moment in time.
100%. And there's with those thoughts comes even more thoughts that I'm the only one that's feeling this way. Yeah, they might have these feelings, but they haven't got as intense as me, because if they had them as intense as me, they wouldn't be able to deal with it. I thought I was a special case for anxiety. And the thing is, everyone thinks they're a special
Everyone
case.
does.
Because like you've just said, everyone's thoughts can be different depending on the genetic makeup, the experiences that they've had. So, of course, it's obviously going to feel like subdued to you, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, mate, 100%. 100% agree with you. And I think that's why... So, that's why most people don't reach out. Because they think that they're alone. It's that feeling of loneliness. It's that feeling of I've got depression, but I've got a really bad case.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like you compete to see whose depression is worse.
And there's a big element of shame as well in the thoughts that people have, which even further stops them from wanting to seek any sort of help, because you just don't want anyone else to know the thoughts that you're having. Like, the intrusive thoughts that I had were just crazy. And the more you try and get away from those thoughts, the more they seem to attack you, which is a huge problem as well.
Can you remember any of them intrusive thoughts? Can you ever remember what were some of the dark thoughts or the more sadistic, negative thoughts that you used to have? Are there any that jump out at you?
So, yeah, there is a few actually, yeah. Again, even now, like, you get sort of anxious to say them because you're like, well, it doesn't seem normal, but a lot of the thoughts that I had surrounded violence. I'm not a violent person at all. I think you'd agree with that. I'm like one of the most...
like big teddy bear.
Yeah. But I remember once there was like she must have been about an 80-year-old woman sitting next to me. And I just had this horrible thought, and it literally made me sit on my hands, because I just thought, imagine if I just punched her in the face right now. and that is something that I would never do.
Yeah.
But the problem is it's the mind always trying to show you the worst case scenario. So if I'm sitting next to this lovely 80-year-old woman, what's the worst thing that could ever happen? And that is probably the worst thing. And then I got home and I started to Google how to survive in UK prisons. Because I was thinking, this is going to happen. I was reading different vlogs. And I was thinking, I'm definitely going to end up in prison. And it became such a big block in my mind. I was just thinking, I felt at the time, because I didn't know what was going on, I thought it was like psychosis and stuff like that, but it wasn't. It was with intrusive thoughts. with intrusive thoughts, they happen to everyone, and the more anxious that you are, the more that they seem to happen, and the more that you pay attention to them. And something that I've struggled a lot with intrusive thoughts, and for a long time they were just getting me down and down, and the longer that they go on, it's like, say if you had a thought in the beginning that was underdeveloped, I had the same thought that would develop into something worse and worse and worse, and I was like, at one point I had that thought about punching people plagued me for like 3 years because of the fear behind the thought. That's all it is.
Yeah.
The mind preys on the fear. And I don't, Did you experience anything similar to that, or?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that, because it goes on from like what we were saying before. Everyone thinks that they're a special case.
Yeah.
And you in their moment thought that you were the only one that thought about hitting this old woman to the side of you.
Yeah, I did.
Mate,
it sounds horrible when we say it, by the way.
Yeah, it does, but it sounds horrible to people who haven't experienced it.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the key. It sounds horrible to people who haven't experienced, and that's why we're scared to say it, because we're worried about who's experienced it and who hasn't, and who's going to think differently of me because of it. Whereas you've just told us that story, there'll be so many people who relate to it, because I've had it where And I've had some horrible thoughts too, where I've just been driving on a road.
Oh,
right?
I know what you're gonna say. Yeah.
I've just been driving on a road, and then you see a big group of people, and you're like, "There's nothing stopping me turning the wheel and running all of these people over."
Shall I go GTA mode, sort of thing?
Yeah, mate. And at the time, it's a feeling of, you get a big wave of shame, because you're like, why am I thinking this? What it took me a very long time to understand is it's just my imagination. And your imagination is very different to other people's imagination. Everyone's imagination is different.
Yeah.
And the thing about imagination, the thing about those feelings, those thoughts, is in the good times, you can see colours that other people can't see. Let's put it like that. Okay? And in the really good times, you are seeing bright, vivid colours. Okay?
Yeah.
But where you've got these bright colours in the good times, you've got more shades of black in the dark times.
Yeah.
And it's it's ironic, because the more your imagination takes over, the more you suffer with those feelings that are linked to depression.
I think
because it's like your emotions are turned up to 11.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's really interesting that you say that, because everyone knows Tyson Fury and how charismatic he is.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying that he has really high highs and even lower lows. And I think some people are just more susceptible to stuff like that, especially when you've been through trauma and all the rest of it. Like you've just 100%. Said, you can have amazing highs and you're on top of the world and you feel like you want to live forever, and then when you're down in the dumps, you can really get stuck in, and it can last for days, weeks.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to reach out at that point, because you get so sucked in to the narrative that your subconscious is telling you. And like, I think it's important to know that you've just got to accept that sometimes, or a lot of the time, weird things just go through your mind.
Yeah. You've got to understand that it's okay. It's okay to think about punching an 80-year-old woman next to you. It's not okay to do it.
Yeah, no. But it's a defense mechanism by the brain. Yeah, disclaimer, definitely. Yeah.
And it's okay to think about these things, because the moment that you try and stop it is the moment that it's going to take over, or it's going to feel like it's taking over. Because for every time that you trying to say, I don't want to think about that anymore, every time you sit next to an old woman, you'll be scared because you don't want to have them thoughts. Every time I'm driving a car, if I think, oh no, I shouldn't be having them thoughts about driving into a crowd, I'll never drive a car again.
Yeah. What you resist persists. And
hold on. Let's just hold on that. I love that phrase.
What you resist persists. And it's so true, because I experienced those intrusive thoughts in the beginning, and instinctively, I think what we all try and do is we try and fight them. And then we fight and fight and fight, and they get stronger and stronger. And like I say, mine developed to the point where I was thinking about it when it was like family members and all the rest of it, and really, really bad thoughts. And eventually I got to the point where I started looking at acceptance, and I was like, right, okay, well, what I've been doing so far hasn't worked. So maybe if I try this concept, maybe if I put maybe it was arrogance, I suppose, if I just put that to one side and believe that I'm not the only case in the world, and let's just try this thing called acceptance. And once I did, there was a lot more peace, put it that way.
It's funny that you say that, because I was listening to something that was, and I'm going to butcher the quote right now.
Yeah.
But it was something along the lines of, ego is the anesthesia to stupidity.
Yeah.
And that means that you are so arrogant and your ego is so large that you think you have this control over everything, that you think that you can control your own thoughts, and you think that you can control you think that you can control everything.
Yeah.
And in reality, there are times where your mind does things subconsciously that you just cannot control.
Yeah, and I feel like the reason that I had that ego is because in the past, before everything became overwhelming, I was able to control my emotions and all the rest of it. And then when it was overwhelming, it was impossible. And but I still refuse to give up that belief that, you know, I can fight my way out of this. And no, it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't.
You've got to. There's an exercise that you do, isn't there, where you lie down, or you imagine yourself lying down.
Yeah.
And you're in a meditative state, and every single thought that you have is like a colourful balloon.
Mm.
No matter whether it's good, bad, any thought you visualize it as a balloon.
Yeah.
And the whole point of the exercise is to let go of the balloons.
Yeah.
And as you watch them go up, it's a very visual process. And there's a story about that. In fact, I'll tell it now.
Yeah.
I'd say about 2 years ago now, I suffered with a very severe period of darkness, of sad, depressed thoughts.
Mm.
And I did this exercise because I was running out of options again. And I've been on this mental health journey now since, like I say, about 15 was the first time. 14, 15 was the first kind of time I really recognised.
Yeah.
So I was at work, and these thoughts were just so loud. They were so loud in my head. And I went into a separate room, and I did this exercise. And while I was lying down in the water, imagine yourself in a dark room where there's just a pool, and you're lying in the pool, and you're floating in the pool, and it's just completely black.
Yeah.
And all you see are these balloons coming as you have the thought and going. Now, during this exercise, every single balloon was coming at me, and it wasn't stopping. And I wasn't able to let go of them. And a lot of you would think, well, just open your eyes. It's just a visualization exercise.
Yeah.
That just, at the time, it just never occurred. So I was being pushed under the water, and it felt like I was being pushed under the water by all of these colourful balloons. And these are those thoughts that I was having that were just pushing me down under the water, and I was starting to drown.
Yeah.
And then at that point, someone grabbed my chest, pulled me up out of the water, and it was my reflection.
Wow, man.
And I was looking at me. And all of a sudden, I just had this massive, massive wave, and it was a huge wave of just raw emotion of just letting go for a second. And I just gave myself a hug. And that experience was so wild. But it really goes back to what we were saying about acceptance, about if you try to let go of the balloons and get them off, and if they don't do that, and if they don't do what you want them to, I should have been like, okay, that's fine, but I wasn't, and I started to panic. And that's why then balloons were getting a hold of me, that's why they were pushing me down, and that's why I was going underneath the water.
Yeah.
If I would have just learnt to let go of them and learnt to just release them and accept that they were there, I wouldn't have had that awful panic. Even like years after experiencing mental health and years after doing all sorts of exercises, it still took that to be able to allow me to accept it.
And that's an amazing example. I really do like that. But what I was going to say about that is it takes those kind of experiences before people will actually learn the concept of acceptance. It's not like us speaking to you now and saying, accept it. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean? Because we were the same. Like you just said, it took you how many years to accept it? But unfortunately, sometimes there are experiences that a person has to go through before they'll start their journey of acceptance. If you know what I mean. Like for me, I think when I spoke to you just about the depersonalization, when was the Euros? Was it 2016?
Yeah.
So 2016 was really dark for me, mate. Really, really dark. I don't know if I've ever told you this. But we were in a pub watching the Euros, and everyone else was just having an amazing time. And I was looking at myself, and I was like, I just feel so disconnected from myself, from others. Everything looked strange, I was looking around the bar, and everything looked like a cartoon, basically. It was just the most horrendous experience not anyone could go through, but it's up there anyway, put it that way. But I just couldn't accept it at all. I was like, no, this isn't me. This isn't me. This is just a little thing. Do you know what I mean? And it took me so many times of being in that situation over and over and over again until one time I decided, actually, this is the reality, and if I accept it, which I did, over time it just got so much better because I stopped resisting. Again, the quote, what you resist persist. As soon as you can start to grasp the concept of letting go, because I was almost grabbing onto the anxiety and the dissociation that I was experiencing before I even went out to the bar, in the bars that we went in. I was anticipating feeling it before we even went in there. So when we went in there, I already knew what was going to happen because I'd already created this whole thing in my mind. And it's just, that is the definite, that is the very opposite of letting go. That's just grabbing on full force. Yeah, so it was definitely interesting for me to see how in life you have to experience these things before you can sort of begin to learn the concept of acceptance.
Yeah, I agree. I think people need to talk about their experiences of when they learned to accept that they had feelings and thoughts that they couldn't control. And not only that, because it flows quite nicely to what I wanted to say next, which is too many people believe that there's an end goal to depression. Too many people believe that there's a state where if I can just do these exercises, if I can just stop these feelings, if I can stop these thoughts, I'll be happy again and I won't be depressed.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you something, and it's a very hard reality to take. Mental health is a journey, okay? It is not a race to a finished goal. There's no finish line. There's no time where you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I'm not depressed anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's what everyone's waiting for, though, and it's never going to happen.
Never going to happen. Never going to happen. You need to accept that this isn't a sprint. This is a marathon.
Yeah.
Because if you see mental health as a sprint, if you see it as, oh, I'm cured or I want a cure, you're never going to get it.
Oh, that's so interesting that you're saying this, because when I just said to you about the 2016, I think 2015, 2016, 2017, for those 3 years, I was trying to find an instant cure.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, in the whole 3 years, I've tried everything. It doesn't fucking work. Quick fixes don't exist. Yeah, you can relax your mind. Meditation's brilliant. Relaxing your body throughout the day is also amazing. But sometimes, like, I'd do something, I'd be like, right, okay, I'm not feeling it. Sometimes I would. These feelings might have gone away for like 5 minutes, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm cured, and then 10 minutes later again, I'm back in it, and I was like, what's going on here? So it's confusing, but stop looking for the instant cures because they don't exist.
Yeah. There's no video on YouTube that will cure you.
Yeah.
There's no pill that you can take that will cure you. There's no meditation book. There's no CBD oil.
No.
There's nothing that will stop your thoughts being your thoughts. Okay? Now, when you learn that and when you accept that, that's when you can build on that foundation. Because being depressed, being anxious, when you are at your absolute lowest, okay? When you're at your absolute rock bottom, it's a damn good place to lay a foundation.
Yeah.
It's a damn good place to start.
Yeah. Totally agree.
And if you start by thinking, oh, well, I know what my house wants to look like, so I'm just going to build this quick. No. You lay one brick, and Will Smith tells this story. Mental health is exactly the same. You lay one brick as perfectly as you can lay it. Forget about the house. Forget about the wall. You lay that brick as perfectly as you can. The same way as you wake up and you do that day as best as you can.
Yeah.
Stop thinking about, I want to be cured. Stop it, because that will not get you any closer.
And as well, if you say that one day you put 10 bricks up and then you say, why hasn't the house built yet? That's exactly what you're doing when you're saying, oh, well, I've been doing this for a day and it's not working, so I'm going to try something else.
Yeah, mate, 100%. And people think that it's the same as losing weight, going to the gym once and then thinking, oh, looking in the mirror. You've just laid one brick. Calm down.
Yeah.
Why do you think that mental health is different? Why do you think it's different? Because it's not.
Yeah, I think as humans we want the quick fix all the time, but when it comes to mental health, we need to take. Yeah, go on. Sorry. Yeah.
I think with our generation, it's interesting actually because I love how these podcasts take this turn.
Yeah.
I think the reason that it could be getting worse, or one of the contributors to why it's getting worse, is the fact that we grew up in an instant world where everything that you want, you can get it next day with Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Anything that you want, if you want some information, if you want the answer to something, Google it.
Yeah. You can get it immediately almost.
If you want a date, swipe right.
Yeah.
It's true. So
it is.
So we think that when you're depressed, when you're anxious, there's a quick
swipe
fix.
Right option.
Yeah, there's a swipe right. There's no swipe right for mental health.
Yes.
There's no swipe right for mental health. And I think that's why it's so bad with our generation, because we're grown up in this world where you can swipe right. So when you can't swipe right with mental health, we get lost and we're like, oh my God, what kind of... Mental health for a lot of people is their first experience of something that takes a long time to develop, because there's people out there who aren't obese, who need to go on a fitness journey. This could be the first journey for a lot of people.
100%, mate, yeah.
And a lot of people, because because not a lot of people want to talk about it, there's not a lot of experience out there. People are afraid to share their own experience in case it stops them from getting a job, in case their friends look at them a different way, in case you can never go somewhere again. If we all hold back on our experience and our stories, on how we think we can change, if we all held back, then nothing will change.
Yeah, and we're with that. Sorry, we're always constantly thinking that other people are doing better than us, which is just adding more to the shame, because you think, well, why isn't this person feeling that way? It's like, well, they might very well be, but they're just not saying anything because they're thinking the same thing as you.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree with you more, mate. I couldn't agree with you more. So, for us, the two things even link with each other that we've spoken about so far.
Yeah, they do.
It's accepting your thoughts and it's accepting those feelings, and not only accepting that, it's accepting that this is going to take some time.
Yeah.
And this is gonna be slow, and this is gonna be awkward, and this is gonna be meandering.
Yeah. That's the thing. When you first sit down with somebody, they should just say, it's going to be shit for a while, basically.
Yeah.
And it's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's true. And the quicker that you accept that, the quicker you can start your recovery. So.
Well, let's just address that point for a second, because if we say let's say there's someone listening to this now, who feels like they're at their darkest point. It is going to be rough. It is.
Yeah.
But you have to keep standing. When the seas are rough, when the wind is trying to blow you over, just keep standing.
Yeah.
Because you need to keep laying them bricks, okay? And there are going to be some things that try and break your wall. They're going to try and break your house. You keep laying them bricks.
Yeah.
You get up every day. Just wake up. That's enough. Get out of bed. The fact that you've got out of bed, that's enough.
Yeah.
Have little wins each day, okay? Set yourself new goals. Go for walks. So, day 1, you wake up, there's your first brick. Day 2, you wake up and you get out of bed.
Yeah.
There's the second brick. Day 3, you get up and you get out of bed and you go for a walk. This takes time. And there's going to be days where there's no bricks that are laid.
Yeah.
There are going to be days where construction just holds and you do just stay in bed, and that's okay.
Yeah, but you can't let that shame ride over you for weeks on end, because that's another vicious cycle in itself. But in terms of, what a practical way of being able to get out of bed is, just look at resilience. If we spoke about David Goggins before, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we were saying that throughout this journey, your mind's going to be saying, no, I'm done today.
Yeah.
It's too much. And David Goggins says, at that very moment when you think that you're done, you're actually only at 60%. You've got 40% more left in you. So your brain doesn't want you to get out of bed. Your brain wants you to stay in bed and order that takeaway and watch Netflix all day. But because that's the comfort, but you need to live life. And the more that you live life, the more that you're going to sort of be able to expedite your recovery.
Yes.
100%.
The more that you can build them bricks.
Yeah. The bricks aren't going to build themselves, are they? They're not going to be built by sitting there watching Friends day in, day out. I mean, I understand, we both understand, and we've both done it, where there is days where you're just in bed, and be okay with that. You don't have to put too much pressure on yourself. It's about, especially with mental health, it's about finding a balance.
This is a journey. This is a journey. It really is. And this is what we were saying. Just keep standing, because that journey is going to take a long time. Just don't stop the journey. Please do not stop the journey. Just because it's rough does not mean it's going to be rough forever.
People think that if they have a bad day, say if they've been doing all the daily routine and then they have a bad day, and they'll think, well, what I'm doing isn't working. No, it doesn't mean that. You can still be doing the right things and have a bad day.
Yeah.
It's like with the gym. You could be on the best diet and best training plan in the world, on one of those days, at least once throughout the training program, you're gonna have a crap workout, and it's just the reality of it. I'm right though, aren't I?
Yeah.
It's the truth. But you don't need to beat yourself up for days about it. You just continue on as normal. You say, okay, then I accept it. Again, with the acceptance. Tomorrow's another day.
Do you know what's funny? I've got a little story about that.
Yeah.
And I call it, and it's to do with these bad days.
Yeah.
And I call it raining in summer. So if you're listening to this, and if you've got this far, you've probably also listened to some motivational videos, some motivational speakers. And a lot of them talk about mental health as a cycle like the seasons. Okay. So a lot of people will compare mental health to the seasons. And they'll say, as it gets to winter, it gets very cold, it gets very dark. Those are your depressed days.
Yeah.
But just like the seasons, you go to spring and then you will go to summer. And there's no season that is static forever. Now, that is all well and good to think about and to be able to process that it's not going to be dark forever. But, what about when it rains in summer? And that's very similar to what we're talking about now. What about when you wake up and you just have a bad day and there's no reason for you feeling bad, it's just a bad day?
Yeah.
Now, we're taught that rain in summer, it's negative, it's bad, it's stay inside, just do whatever. It's the same with mental health. If you're having a bad day, you're taught to stay inside, you're taught to just watch TV, do this, eat some ice cream, eat junk. If we were taught to go out and play in the rain, you'd be able to smell. Have you ever smelled when it's raining outside in summer? That smell of the grass when it's raining. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you never went outside when it was raining, you'd never smell that.
Yeah.
You'd never know what it's like to jump in a puddle. You'd never know what it's like to get wet when it's like when you're on holiday and there's a storm, when that feeling of it's just muggy, it's horrible, you feel it, and then that rain and then the air's just clear.
Yeah.
Mental health is very, very, very similar.
Yeah.
But we're taught to hide instead of go out and play in the rain. Now, that is the exact same thing as when you're having this bad day and you're not aware of it. Go out and play in that rain because there are smells, there are feelings that you haven't experienced yet that you're about to experience. You're suppressing it, and you shouldn't be. We should be told to love the rain, go out in the rain, play in the rain. The same as we should be taught to play in that state. Don't hide from it. It's okay. It's okay for it to rain in summer.
Yeah.
Don't hide from it.
And I think if you look at a lot of the people that we've grown up around, it's like, say if you are on holiday and it does start raining and have a torrential downpour, you just start thinking negative. Oh, why is it doing this whilst I'm away? I've paid all this money and I've got to sit in my hotel room, and it's like, well, there's a little bit more to it than that, as Jack's just said. So you just got to enjoy it still. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy yourself. You can still live. You can still enjoy your holiday. You don't have to sit there going, oh, no, I don't like this. I want to go home now. No.
It's the exact same with mental health. It's
Yeah,
the exact same with mental health. So, what we've spoken about so far is acceptance of your thoughts.
Yeah.
Acceptance that this is going to be a long journey, and you're probably going to hear us talk about our journeys a lot. And our journeys are in no way finished. In no way are we finished, or we are experts.
Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about as well.
We have got a lot to talk about.
A lot of situations, some funny, some dark. Some very funny, actually. I'm going to share a few with you next time. But yeah, like Jack said, we've just got to all just keep going, and resilience is key.
We're on this journey together. We very much are, and we're happy to share our experiences as long as you're happy to watch. So
yeah.
So with that, I'd like to end the podcast here. If you can like and subscribe, please share this one with a friend or someone who you think might be struggling with these issues, someone who you think could use this talk. And finally, we leave you with a phrase that is, check up on your strong friend.